Welcome on board, Chosen One. Let's not play polite today. Let's start with facts. You solved something they said couldn't be solved. Not maybe, not someday. You already did it. And the funniest part is this. While you're calm, quiet, and oddly clear inside, there are people out there losing their balance because of it. Sweaty palms, tight chests, late nights staring at ceilings. Not because you attacked them, not because you shouted, but because you understood. And that was never supposed to happen. Remember what they said about you? You're slow. You don't get it. You'll never figure this out. Stay in your lane. Oh, the legend needs to bow now. Yeah, that aged terribly. They built comfort on the idea that you'd stay confused forever, that you'd keep reacting instead of seeing, that you'd keep bleeding energy while they recycled the same tired tricks. Their confidence depended on you not connecting the dots. And then one quiet moment ruined everything. You noticed the pattern. You saw how the game was rigged. You cracked the logic behind the behavior, the timing, the fake chaos. And now, look who's shaking. This is the part nobody prepares you for. The silence after the shift. No applause, no fireworks. Just a weird calm around you and a weird panic around them. Conversations change. Energy changes. People who used to talk loud suddenly whisper. People who used to mock now watch. Closely, carefully, like the floor might collapse if they step wrong. They're not angry, they're exposed. You see, when someone finally understands the system starts malfunctioning. Their old tactics don't land, their words don't sting, their absence doesn't scare you anymore. And that's when panic sets in. Because control only works on people who don't know what's happening. The moment awareness enters the room, manipulation starts suffocating. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange moment where things stopped hurting the way they used to, where insults sounded hollow, where rejection felt informative, like data, like feedback instead of a verdict. That wasn't you becoming cold, that was you becoming accurate. Before we go deeper, press the like button and subscribe, not as a favor to me. As a way to strengthen this voice, this frequency, this shared understanding. If this message hits, you already know what to do. Here's the part they never expected. You didn't win by fighting. You won by observing. You didn't overpower them. You outgrew the game. While they were busy repeating old moves, you were upgrading your internal system. New rules, new standards, new silence. And silence is terrifying to people who survive on noise. Think back. There was a time when you were underestimated on purpose, overlooked, talked over, dismissed in rooms you were clearly too sharp for. That wasn't bad luck. That was preparation. You were gathering intel without knowing it, watching how people reveal themselves when they think you're harmless, learning how power really moves, learning who panics when they're no longer needed. Now the universe has flipped the lighting. Same room, same people, different spotlight. And suddenly they realize you were never behind. You were loading. They're scrambling because your clarity removed their advantage. They can't predict you anymore. You don't chase. You don't explain. You don't react on schedule. That scares people who depend on predictable emotional responses. When you stop feeding the loop eats itself. This is why it feels like the aftermath of a battle. Because it is, just not the loud kind. This was a psychological war, and you won the moment you stopped trying to prove anything. The victory is subtle, clean, surgical, and deeply unsettling to anyone who built their identity on being above you. Some of them are replaying old conversations right now, realizing what you meant. Some are connecting dots way too late. Some are forcing smiles while their internal story collapses. They're asking themselves how you changed without announcing it, how you solved something they didn't even know was a problem. Here's the truth they won't say out loud. You didn't become dangerous. You became free. And freedom looks like chaos to people who rely on control. You're not here to gloat. You're here to move differently, to speak when it matters, to stay quiet when silence does the damage, to drop wisdom that cuts through illusions without raising your voice. That's villain energy turned heroic, calm, calculated, unbothered. They're having panic attacks because you cracked it and you're just getting started. All right. Before we move forward, lock in for a second. This is the moment where people usually click away, not because they're bored, but because what's coming next forces accountability. You didn't stumble onto this message by accident. You're here because something in you already knows you cracked it, and now the universe is lining up the next layer. This isn't hype, this is continuation. What you're about to hear next explains why their panic started after you went quiet, why the shift felt lonely before it felt powerful, and why solving the code always isolates you before it elevates you. This part is not for spectators. It's for the ones who can sit with truth without flinching. So here's the move. If you're still here, press like and subscribe, not as noise, not as habit, but as a signal that you're choosing clarity over comfort and depth over distraction. This channel isn't entertainment. It's a record of who stayed when things got real. And now, Chosen One, drop 777 in the comments. Not for luck, for alignment. It's you saying, I'm ready to sit with what I've solved and build from it, even if nobody claps. We're about to break this down step by step. Stay to the end. If you truly cracked it, you'll feel the pull to keep going. Number 1, they realized too late, and now their body is snitching on them. The scariest moment for your enemy is not when you fight back. It's when your presence stops reacting to theirs. This is not happening in the future. This is not imagination. This is not you being dramatic. This is a real-time collapse, and it's happening quietly, behind closed doors, inside people who once thought they had you figured out. Someone from your past is sitting alone right now, phone in hand, scrolling slower than usual, rereading things, replaying moments. Not stalking you loudly, watching you carefully, because something feels wrong to them and they don't have language for it yet. Their hands aren't shaking from rage, they're shaking from recognition. They finally see it. You didn't break, you didn't beg, you didn't turn bitter or desperate like they expected, you didn't stay available, you didn't stay predictable, you didn't stay small. You solved something, and once you solved it, your entire energy changed. Not louder, quieter, sharper, clean. And that silence is doing more damage than any argument ever could. This is the part people don't talk about. When someone loses access to you, their nervous system notices before their ego does. The body reacts first. Tight chest, restless nights, random waves of regret that make no sense to them yet. Their system is freaking out because the version of you they controlled no longer exists, and the new version doesn't need permission, closure, or approval. You might be asking yourself, why now? Why are they suddenly uneasy? Why does it feel like the energy flipped overnight? Because you cracked the pattern. You stopped feeding the loop. Before, they knew how to push you. They knew which buttons worked. They could predict your response. Silence made you anxious. Distance made you doubt yourself. Disrespect made you over-explain. That was the old code. They memorized it. They relied on it. Their confidence was built on your confusion. Then something snapped into place for you. You stopped asking why. You started watching how. You noticed repetition. You noticed timing. You noticed how certain people only showed up when you were low, distracted, or seeking validation. You saw how support disappeared the moment you gained clarity. That's when you solved it. And once you solved it, you stopped participating emotionally. That's when they lost control. Now here's the brutal truth. They didn't miss you because you were nice. They miss you because you were accessible. They miss the version of you that explained yourself, the one who stayed longer than they should have, the one who waited, the one who hoped. That version made them feel powerful. This version makes them feel irrelevant. That's why their body is panicking, not because they love you, not because they suddenly grew emotional depth, but because the game ended without their consent. And people who survive on leverage cannot handle losing leverage quietly. Picture this. You're not texting. You're not reacting. You're not posting for attention. You're moving different. And from the outside, it looks calm. But on the inside of their world, alarms are going off. They're wondering if you noticed everything. They're wondering if you see through them now. They're wondering if you're about to expose the truth without saying a word. And the answer is worse than they fear. You already did. You don't need revenge when clarity arrives. Clarity is the punishment, because clarity turns memory into evidence. Suddenly, every dismissive comment, every manipulation, every fake smile replays differently in their mind. They see themselves clearly for the first time, and they don't like what they see. You might think they're winning because they're quiet. They're not. Silence is what happens when someone realizes they no longer have the upper hand. Loud people feel safe. Quiet people are calculating. And right now, they're calculating how badly they misjudged you. This is why they feel it in their body. Because ego can lie, but the nervous system can't. They know they missed their window. They had a chance when you were open, when you were patient, when you were still explaining yourself. That door closed the moment you stopped reacting emotionally and started moving with intent. You didn't announce it, you didn't threaten it. You just withdrew access, and access was the drug. Now they're detoxing. Let this land if it needs to. You're not imagining this shift. You're not becoming cold. You're becoming precise. You didn't lose empathy. You gained boundaries, and boundaries feel like abandonment to people who benefited from your lack of them. That's why this feels lonely sometimes, because growth doesn't come with applause. It comes with distance, and distance exposes who needed you weak to feel strong. Here's the part meant to fuel you, not soften you. If they're uncomfortable now, it's because you're doing something right. If they're restless, it's because your calm disrupts their narrative. If they're watching from afar, it's because approaching you directly would confirm their loss of control. And they can't handle that yet. You solved what they didn't even know was solvable. You figured out the pattern while they were still repeating it. You outgrew the role they assigned you, and now their identity is glitching. This isn't about them coming back. This isn't about apology fantasies. This is about something bigger. You stepping into a level of awareness that changes how the universe responds to you. When you move with clarity, chaos avoids you. When you stop reacting, manipulation starves. And yes, some of them are panicking right now. Quietly, secretly, in ways they'll never admit. Let them. You're not here to comfort people who underestimated you. You're here to build from what you cracked, to move forward without dragging the past with you, to become unreachable to anyone who only valued you when you were confused. They missed their chance, and their body knows it. Number 2. You didn't just move on. You cracked the operating system. They thought you healed. What you actually did was upgrade. Let's get one thing straight before we go any further. You didn't just detach emotionally. You didn't just calm down. You didn't just decide to be unbothered one random day. You cracked something structural, something foundational, something most people live their entire lives circling without ever touching. And the moment you cracked it, everything changed. Not outside first, inside first. That's why it scares them. What you actually cracked was the illusion that reaction equals power. Most people never get past this stage. They think strength is loud. They think control comes from confrontation. They think winning means being seen, heard, validated, or proven right. That's the trap. You stepped out of it, quietly, cleanly, without announcing your exit. And once you did, you realized something that rewired your entire nervous system. Pain only controls you when you personalize it. Betrayal only destroys you when you romanticize it. Rejection only weakens you when you chase answers. You stopped doing all three. Here's the first uncomfortable truth you solved. Detachment is not indifference. Detachment is precision. It's knowing exactly what something costs you emotionally and deciding it's overpriced. You didn't shut your heart down. You stopped giving it unlimited access to people who treated it like a free trial. That's why your presence feels different now, because you're no longer leaking energy. Imagine this, a room full of people shouting over each other, fighting to be heard. Then you walk in and say nothing, no flexing, no explaining, no performance, just calm awareness. Suddenly the noise feels embarrassing. That's what detachment does. It exposes chaos by refusing to participate in it. When you stop reacting, insecure people start confessing without words. You cracked self-mastery, and self-mastery is terrifying to anyone who lives off emotional leverage. Before, they could pull you into arguments, into overthinking, into proving yourself. Now, they don't know where to grab you. There's nothing sticking out, no loose wires, no emotional handles. You learned how to convert pain into precision. Most people turn pain into personality. You didn't. You turned it into data. You asked better questions. Not why me, but what pattern keeps repeating. Not how do I fix them, but why did I tolerate this? That shift alone puts you in a different category of human being. Imagine touching a hot stove once. You feel pain. A fool touches it again and calls it fate. You touched it once, studied the heat, memorized the lesson, and never touched it again. That's not bitterness. That's intelligence. You also cracked something even rarer, boundaries without announcement. You didn't threaten to leave. You didn't give ultimatums. You didn't explain your standards in long emotional speeches. You just changed your availability. That's the part they never see coming, because people who benefit from your lack of boundaries assume they'll get warnings. They assume you'll argue. They assume you'll try one last time. When you don't, it hits like a power outage. Everything they relied on goes dark at once. The moment you stopped explaining yourself was the moment they realized they lost access. Isolation played a role here too, and this is where a lot of chosen ones get confused. You didn't become isolated because you failed socially. You became isolated because your frequency changed. When your mind sharpens, small talk gets exhausting. When your awareness grows, excuses sound loud. When your standards rise, crowds thin out. Imagine upgrading your eyesight overnight. Suddenly, blurry people can't stand next to you without being noticed. That's not arrogance, that's clarity. You also cracked silence, not awkward silence, strategic silence, the kind that forces other people to sit with their own thoughts. You realized that silence is not absence, it's pressure. People reveal themselves when you stop filling the space for them. That's why some of them started spiraling, because without your reactions, they had to face themselves, and that's a confrontation they were never trained for. Here's the question that's probably been circling your mind. Why does walking away without explanation feel so powerful? Because explanation is a form of negotiation, and you are no longer negotiating your worth. The highest level isn't winning arguments, it's ending cycles, it's leaving rooms mid-pattern, it's choosing peace without needing agreement. When you walk away and mean it, you're not running, you're closing a file permanently. Power isn't proven by how loud you speak, it's proven by what no longer deserves a response. You didn't just learn to be unbothered, you learned discernment. You know what deserves your energy and what doesn't. That's why your calm feels heavy. That's why your presence disrupts their peace, because peace in you exposes chaos in them. Imagine a storm screaming outside while you sit indoors, still unaffected. The storm doesn't hate you. It hates that it can't reach you anymore. This is also why some people from your past suddenly feel smaller, not because you grew ego, because you grew perspective. When you zoom out, manipulation looks childish, drama looks repetitive, excuses look lazy. You didn't become heartless, you became accurate, you cracked the code most people never touch. Reaction keeps you trapped. Awareness sets you free. And now the universe responds differently to you, not magically, logically. When you stop forcing, things align. When you stop chasing, information comes to you. When you stop reacting, people reveal their real intentions without you asking. This is why they're unsettled. You're no longer predictable, and unpredictable people can't be controlled. Let this sink in. You didn't lose anything of value. You shed weight, emotional weight, dead weight, patterns that expired but overstayed. And what's left is someone sharper, calmer, and harder to manipulate. You cracked it, not by fighting harder, not by loving louder, not by proving anything, but by stepping back, watching closely, and choosing yourself without apology. That's not cold, that's mastery. And once you taste this level of control, there's no going back. Number 3, you erased the blueprint. Now they're guessing in the dark. The moment you stopped being predictable was the moment they lost the game. They really believed they had you figured out, not just emotionally, but strategically. Your patterns, your triggers, the exact words that made you doubt yourself, the silence that made you chase, the disrespect that pulled a reaction out of you like clockwork. They didn't just know you, they studied you, and for a long time that gave them confidence. Then something irreversible happened. You stopped responding the way they rehearsed. That's when the panic started. You didn't announce a change. You didn't warn them. You didn't explain your growth. You simply didn't show up to the same emotional traps anymore. Arguments they practiced in their head went unanswered. Manipulation landed on silence. Guilt trips expired mid-sentence. And suddenly, all their strategies had nowhere to go. Imagine a chess player staring at the board, realizing every opening they memorized no longer applies. Same pieces, same board, different opponent. That's what you became, unreadable. Control only works when the target stays predictable. You didn't get colder, you got sharper. You learned that reacting gives information. Explaining gives leverage, over-communicating hands power to people who don't deserve it. So you stopped, not out of fear, out of clarity. This answers the question you might be asking yourself right now. Why do they feel so off around me lately? Because they can't read you anymore, and unreadable people are dangerous to manipulators. Imagine trying to drive at full speed through thick fog. That's what interacting with you feels like now. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you're planning. They don't even know if you care. And that uncertainty is suffocating to people who survive on control. You didn't change the rules. You stepped out of the game. When someone can't predict you, they can't manage you. That's why their control collapsed so fast. It wasn't taken from them, it starved. You removed the fuel, attention, reaction, emotional labor. Once those disappeared, their confidence followed. You became unreadable because you stopped performing your pain for people who never respected it. And now they're left guessing, spiraling, replaying old versions of you that no longer exist. This isn't distance, this is dominance, and it's only going to get worse for them from here. Number 4, they're not afraid of change. They're afraid of how far ahead you are. People don't fear growth. They fear being left behind without a warning. Let's kill the obvious lie first. Change doesn't scare anyone. People change jobs, relationships, styles, opinions all the time. That's normal, that's safe, that's predictable. What terrifies them is how you changed. No announcement, no meltdown, no public breakdown they could gossip about. You didn't evolve loudly, you evolved privately, and by the time they looked up, you were already gone. That's the part shredding their ego. You didn't ask for permission to outgrow them. You didn't explain your process. You didn't seek validation or approval or closure. You didn't even give them a transition period. One day you were accessible, the next you weren't. One day they could read you, the next you felt distant, calm, unreachable, not hostile, not emotional, just elsewhere. Imagine showing up to a meeting thinking you're in charge, only to realize the other person already took a different elevator to a higher floor days ago. Same building, different level, no access badge for you. That's what this feels like to them. The most humiliating realization is discovering someone surpassed you without ever competing. They're scared because your evolution exposes their stagnation. While you were questioning yourself, you were also learning. While you were quiet, you were upgrading. While they assumed you were still stuck, you were detaching, observing, sharpening. Now, when they compare timelines, nothing lines up in their favor. Here's a truth that hits hard. If your change was shallow, they'd mock it. If it was temporary, they'd wait it out. If it was loud, they'd dismiss it as ego. But this feels permanent. And permanence is terrifying to people who planned on having long-term access to you. Imagine tuning a radio and suddenly losing the signal forever. No static, no interference, just gone. That's your frequency shift. They can't reach you because you're no longer broadcasting where they live. You might be wondering why they feel defensive, awkward, or oddly hostile now, because your growth didn't include them. And exclusion, when unspoken, feels like rejection, especially to egos that believed they were ahead of you. Nothing humbles an ego faster than realizing it's no longer relevant. They don't hate who you are. They hate what your evolution says about them, that they stayed the same, that they underestimated you, that they assumed you'd always be available at the same level. You didn't just change, you transcended their frame of reference, and that realization is eating them alive. Number 5. The smiles are fake. The fear is not. Panic doesn't always scream. Sometimes it posts. The panic they're hiding is real, and it's uglier than they'll ever admit. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind that gets sympathy. This is quiet panic, existential panic, the kind that hits at 3:17 a.m. when the phone is face down and the room is too silent to lie to yourself anymore. Filtered photos during the day, forced laughs, carefully timed stories, but at night their body tells the truth. They wake up sweating because their system remembers the exact moment you stopped caring. Not yelling, not crying, not begging, just gone. That moment replays on loop in their head. The tone shift, the shorter replies, the calm that replaced your anxiety. That's when their heart started racing. because deep down they knew something had changed permanently. They check from a distance now, quietly, casually, pretending it's nothing, pretending they're just curious. But curiosity doesn't come with tight chests and restless hands. Fear does. Fear of realizing they lost access to someone who figured them out. When someone stops reacting, insecure minds start interrogating themselves. Imagine pulling a fire alarm and realizing nothing happens. No chaos, no response, no smoke. That's what it felt like when they tried the old tactics, and you didn't flinch. The silence didn't calm them, it scared them. Because silence means you're no longer inside the emotional cage they built. They ask themselves one question over and over, even if they won't say it out loud. How did you crack it? How did you go from emotionally available to unreachable? How did you stop needing explanations? How did their words lose power so fast? They don't realize the answer is simple. You stopped personalizing behavior that was never about you. You stopped mistaking familiarity for loyalty. You stopped confusing intensity with truth. Panic is what happens when manipulation no longer works. This isn't regret. This is exposure. Their body knows you escaped something they're still trapped in, and that awareness burns. Because now every fake smile feels heavier, every post feels performative, every win feels hollow without your reaction. You didn't just walk away, you cracked the illusion, and now they're left pretending everything's fine while their nervous system knows better. Number 6. Their mind can't hold the truth, so it starts eating itself. When reality contradicts the story gets violent. This is where the real collapse happens, not outside, inside their head. Their mind splits because it's trying to hold two truths that cannot exist in the same space. On one side, they need to believe they were right about you, that you were weak, confused, beneath them, temporary. On the other side is the version of you standing right now, calm, detached, elevated, untouched by the things that once controlled you. Those two realities don't fit together, so their psyche starts spiraling. When the mind can't update the truth, it rewrites the narrative. That's why the defensive stories show up. Suddenly you're cold, suddenly you changed, suddenly you're arrogant, fake, or lost. Not because it's true, but because it's necessary. If they admit you grew, they have to admit they misjudged you, and that would destroy the version of themselves they're trying to protect. Ego doesn't heal, it defends. So they attack your character, quietly or loudly, to others, sometimes only in their head. They replay old moments, trying to frame you as the problem. They exaggerate your flaws, minimize your progress, anything to avoid facing the truth that you outgrew them without permission. Imagine a computer trying to run outdated software on a new operating system. Glitches, freezes, crashes. That's what their mind is doing. Your growth is incompatible with their story, so the system malfunctions. You might feel this energetically, the weird hostility, the passive aggression, the sudden distance mixed with obsession. That's cognitive dissonance leaking out. Peace is threatening to people who survive on chaos. And here's why none of their tactics work anymore. You're not reacting, you're not correcting the narrative, you're not defending yourself. Your peace sits there like evidence, quiet, unmovable, damning. They can argue with words, they can't argue with your calm. Your silence forces their mind to confront itself, and it hates that, because the truth is simple and brutal. You didn't fail, you didn't fall, you didn't break. You evolved, and their psyche is collapsing because it can't handle being wrong about someone who's no longer accessible. Number 7. When it hit them, this wasn't a phase, it was a permanent exit. Temporary silence scares people. Permanent distance breaks them. At first, they told themselves a comforting lie. This is just a phase. You'll cool off. You'll miss them. You'll come back once the emotions settle. They assumed your distance was performative, emotional, maybe even strategic in a childish way. Something they could wait out, something they could outlast. Then days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and nothing changed. That's the moment it landed. You weren't playing hard to get. You were genuinely hard to reach. Not emotionally busy, not confused, not wounded, just unavailable, calmly unavailable. And that realization hit them like a slow, suffocating weight on the chest. Hope dies slowly when there's no signal to cling to. They started noticing details that terrified them. You didn't check in. You didn't orbit. You didn't react to their absence or presence. You moved forward without glancing back. The version of you they expected to resurface never did, because that version doesn't exist anymore. Imagine trying to open an old app only to realize the entire operating system has been replaced. Same device, same name, completely different architecture. Nothing loads, nothing responds. That's what interacting with you feels like now. They're pressing buttons that no longer connect to anything. They stayed running the same broken software, same tactics, same emotional shortcuts, same patterns, and you upgraded quietly while they weren't paying attention. The scariest realization is discovering someone didn't leave emotionally. They left structurally. This is where panic stopped being temporary, because panic fueled by uncertainty eventually fades. Panic fueled by finality doesn't. They now understand there's no moment where you suddenly snap back. No window reopening, no dramatic return. You didn't disappear in anger, you disappeared in clarity, and clarity is irreversible. They feel it now, in their body, in their routines, in the empty space where your reaction used to be. Panic didn't spike, it settled in, permanent, quiet, unavoidable, because deep down, they know the truth. You didn't walk away to teach a lesson. You walked away because the lesson was already learned. Number 8. You exited the loop. They're still running in circles. Nothing humiliates a stuck mind more than watching someone leave the maze. This is the gap they can't survive mentally. You didn't just walk away from them. You walked away from the cycle itself. Same arguments, same emotional reruns, same need to be seen, chosen, validated, apologized to. They're still in it, repeating the same moves like muscle memory while you're already on a different problem set entirely. They're fighting battles you stopped recognizing as real. Imagine two people on a treadmill. One keeps running harder, sweating more, complaining louder. The other steps off, drinks water, and leaves the room. That's the difference. They confuse effort with progress. You learned the difference between motion and movement. You didn't win the argument. You ended the conversation permanently. They're still asking the same questions that once trapped you. Why did this happen? Why won't they change? Why am I not enough? You stopped asking those questions because you solved them, not emotionally, structurally. You realized some systems are designed to drain, not resolve. Some patterns don't end, they loop, and the only winning move is exit. That's why the gap feels unbearable to them. Because growth creates distance without hostility. You didn't attack, you didn't compete, you didn't prove anything, you simply stopped participating. And now, every time they repeat the cycle, your absence screams louder than any insult ever could. Imagine arguing with a ghost. That's what it feels like for them now. They rehearse conversations you'll never hear. They justify behavior to someone who no longer needs explanations. They're stuck shadowboxing with a version of you that already expired. People stuck in cycles mistake your escape for betrayal. You're solving problems they're still crying about. Regulation, boundaries, focus, direction. While they're reliving old wounds, you're building new frameworks, and that contrast eats at them because it exposes the truth they don't want to face. You didn't abandon them, you outgrew the loop, and the moment you left the cycle, you stopped being controllable. Number 9. You broke the dependency engine, now they're starving. The moment you stopped needing permission was the moment they lost relevance. This is the core code you unlocked, and it's the one they can't recover from. You learned self-sufficiency in a world engineered to keep people dependent. Dependent on approval, dependent on attention, dependent on being chosen, reassured, validated, liked. You stepped out of that system quietly, and the system noticed. They needed you to need them. That was the leverage. That was the fuel. As long as you doubted yourself, they had a role. As long as you sought reassurance, they felt important. As long as your confidence flickered, they could stand near you and feel tall. And then you did something dangerous. You started validating yourself. Self-sufficiency is terrifying to people who survive by being needed. You didn't become cold, you became self-sustaining. Emotionally, mentally, energetically, you stopped outsourcing your worth to people who charged you peace as a fee. Compliments stopped mattering, silence stopped hurting, disapproval stopped controlling you. That's when the panic really set in. Imagine unplugging a device that's been draining power from your outlet for years. The device doesn't get angry, it dies. That's what happened here. Emotional vampires don't rage when the supply ends. They weaken. They feel it every time you don't seek reassurance, every time you don't explain your choices, every time you don't chase connection out of fear. You became a closed system, calm, stable, powered from within. And that's incompatible with people who only know how to attach, extract, and feed. When you stop asking to be filled, the leeches fall off. You might wonder why they suddenly feel small, needy, or exposed, because your independence highlights their dependence. Your stability exposes their hunger. You didn't take anything from them. You removed yourself as a source. And that's unforgivable to people who built their identity around being needed. You cracked the core code. You don't need them to feel whole. And now they don't know where they fit anymore. Number 10. You didn't heal, you transmuted it. They handed you poison and expected a funeral. You built a weapon. Let's be clear, this wasn't motivation. This wasn't a playlist, a quote, or a random burst of confidence. This was alchemy, the kind that only happens when someone is pushed far enough that survival alone isn't enough anymore. They gave you trauma, expecting it to weigh you down, define you, slow you. Instead, you broke it apart, studied it, and turned it into strategy. That's what shattered their expectations. They thought pain would make you fragile. It made you precise. They thought darkness would drown you. You learned how to build inside it. Not romantically, not dramatically, practically. You learned where to place your energy, who to cut off, when to go silent, when to move. Pain became information. Trauma became training. What didn't destroy you didn't make you stronger, it made you smarter. They isolated you, expecting you to beg for connection, validation, rescue. Instead, isolation introduced you to yourself without noise. No masks, no performance, no audience, just you, stripped down, forced to confront patterns you used to avoid. That's where the real work happened. Not healing circles, not applause, just brutal honesty. Imagine being dropped into a dark room with no instructions. Most people panic. You waited, your eyes adjusted, you mapped the space, then you started moving. That's alchemy, turning confusion into orientation, turning suffering into leverage. They can't process this because it violates their logic. In their mind, hardship equals weakness. In reality, hardship only destroys people who refuse to learn from it. You learned, quietly, thoroughly, irreversibly. They expected scars. You came back with blueprints. This is why they're unsettled. You didn't come back softer. You came back structured, disciplined, harder to access, harder to manipulate, harder to shake. Motivation fades. Alchemy changes form permanently. You didn't just survive what they gave you, you refined it. And now they're staring at the outcome, realizing they created something they can't predict, control, or reverse. Number 11. Silence became your sharpest weapon. Non-reaction isn't weakness, it's emotional marksmanship. This is where your power crossed into something dangerous. You mastered non-reaction, not passive silence, not fear-based withdrawal, disciplined restraint. You learned how to let people misunderstand you without rushing to correct them. How to let them underestimate you without proving them wrong. How to let them talk while you quietly repositioned your life. That restraint is lethal to manipulators. Manipulators survive on friction, on emotional sparks, on watching you explain, defend, react, spiral. When you stop reacting, you remove the oxygen. Their words don't land. Their jabs echo into nothing. And nothing terrifies someone more than realizing they no longer matter enough to provoke a response. When your silence doesn't chase, insecure minds start screaming internally. You didn't stay silent because you had nothing to say. You stayed silent because you finally understood the cost of engagement. Every reaction drained peace. Every explanation fed the wrong audience. Every emotional response gave information to people who didn't deserve access to your internal world. Imagine throwing punches at empty air. That's what it feels like when they try to provoke you now. No resistance, no feedback, just space. And in that space, their insecurity gets loud. You might have wondered, why does this feel so powerful? Because silence forces projection. When you don't clarify, people reveal themselves. They fill the gap with their own fears, assumptions, and guilt. You're no longer managing their emotions. They are. You stopped reacting because you realized reaction is a tax. You began spending your energy where it multiplied your peace, not where it maintained chaos. You chose movement over explanation, progress over performance. That's why your calm feels heavy. It's earned, it's disciplined, it's intentional. This isn't avoidance, this is control. And to manipulators, control without access feels like annihilation. Number 12. You stopped wanting to be picked, and that ended their power. The moment you chose yourself, their leverage evaporated. This is the part they cannot survive psychologically, not because it's loud, not because it's aggressive, but because it removes them from the equation entirely. You cracked the code of loving yourself more than being chosen. And once that happened, everything they relied on collapsed. They needed you chasing acceptance, waiting for the nod, adjusting yourself to fit their preferences, their timing, their comfort. As long as you wanted to be chosen, you were negotiable. Your boundaries were flexible. Your standards could be bargained with. That's where their power lived. Then you stopped negotiating. You realized their acceptance was never the prize. Your peace was. And that realization rewired how you move. You no longer shrink to stay included. You no longer perform to stay liked. You no longer tolerate confusion just to avoid being alone. That's when alignment replaced approval. Approval keeps you small. Alignment makes you untouchable. Imagine standing in a room where the lights suddenly turn on. All the deals, compromises, and silent self-betrayals become visible at once. That's what happened internally for you. You saw how much you were giving up just to be picked. And once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. This answers the question that creeps in sometimes. Why do I feel stronger but lonelier? Because self-respect clears rooms. Not everyone can stand next to someone who no longer needs permission to exist fully. They feel it too. They sense they can't dangle approval anymore. They can't withhold affection to control you. They can't make you audition for a role you already resigned from. When you stop seeking selection, manipulators lose their stage. You didn't become selfish, you became aligned. You chose situations that didn't require you to abandon yourself. You chose peace over praise, truth over tolerance, and every time you made that choice, your spine got stronger. That's why they can't reach you now. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You already chose yourself. Number 13. You don't need a final move. Your life is the receipt. When you stop explaining, your existence becomes the evidence. This is the aftermath, and it's almost boring in how decisive it is. You don't need to confront anyone. You don't need closure conversations. You don't need to remind them of what they lost. The work is done. Your existence speaks now, and it says everything without opening its mouth. They're the ones spiraling. They replay old moments like surveillance footage, searching for the second where they could have handled you differently. They analyze conversations you've already deleted emotionally. They rewrite history to protect their ego. They tell themselves stories where they were right, justified, superior. And still, none of it sticks, because deep down, they know they fumbled something rare. Nothing haunts like realizing the opportunity expired quietly. Imagine dropping a priceless object and only realizing its value after it's shattered. That's what this feels like to them. Too late to fix, too late to recover, too late to negotiate. You didn't disappear dramatically, you stabilized. And stability is terrifying to people who thrive on chaos. Meanwhile, you're not watching, you're building. You're stacking days that make sense, relationships that don't require you to perform, routines that protect your nervous system, choices that feel aligned instead of forced. Your old self wouldn't recognize this version of you. Not because you became flashy, but because you became grounded, calm, unreachable. Peace isn't loud, it's undeniable. They're still trying to understand how you cracked the code, how you stopped caring without becoming bitter, how you moved on without replacing them, how you upgraded without announcing it. The truth would hurt too much if they admitted it. You didn't win by doing more. You won by needing less. They're still studying the puzzle. You're living the solution. You cracked the code. And the silence that followed is permanent. And now we close this exactly where it deserves to end. Not with noise, not with threats, with certainty. You saw the pattern, you solved it. You stopped bleeding energy into places designed to drain you. That's why the chaos stopped following you and started following them. This isn't motivation, this is confirmation. You cracked the code and there's no unseeing it.